Hi, hope you all are doing well. So today I just want to talk a little bit about what I have just started calling the Starseed complex. I know this is something that I've heard a lot about. I think we all kind of have this, we can relate on so many levels to this idea of having had all these past experiences, these past lives of being a light being, right? Where we talk about this over and over of, at some point we were burned at the stake, our heads were chopped off, we were traumatized, we were basically, tortured and made to feel that our light and our presence here on this planet was very unwelcome, right? This is a pretty familiar theme. I think we're all familiar with this story. And not that it's really a story, right? These things actually occurred. What I have found so difficult about this is that through my own journey, of course, I've been aware of this, right? Like there's so many times, like I hold so much trauma from the past, and yet this misunderstanding or this kind of unknowing of how to move forward through that. And of course, this happens on so many levels. It's not like we just do this one time and we're through it and we're over it. That it can be related to many, many different kinds of experiences. And I recently went through this thing in my life where it's like, okay, I have to really start diving into this work and stepping out. And it's like, I want to do this. Like I've gone through some experiences recently where I've really had to kind of lay all my cards out, right, and make some hard choices and say, is this what I want or is that what I want? Like, what am I really doing here? No matter kind of what situation I'm put in, I'm always resisting, right? I'm always resisting. The grass always looks greener on the other side. I recently had to take this job that was really not a very good job at all. It was, really bad hours, all kinds of kind of things that just made it even worse than it should have been. And so I was, forced to be in this position where I really had to look at what I was doing and say, like, is this the kind of life that I want? Or am I going to step up and do what I'm here to do? And then finding myself kind of fighting with this still, like going back and forth, like feeling almost ungrateful for what I've been given in this life. And it really started to kind of mess with my head in the sense that, like, what is wrong with me that I can't appreciate what I have? I say I want this kind of life and I have the opportunity to have this kind of life, and yet I'm still fighting it and going back and forth. And so I realized, and not that I haven't known this before, right? But again, this came through on such a very deep level for me the other day. It was as if these veils were kind of lifted out of my reality. This awareness and this understanding of this deep anger and resentment that I have of myself and how I am showing up in this world and who I am supposed to be, what I'm supposed to be in this world, in this lifetime. Really frustrated because I would so much rather desire to have the security of that 9 to 5 job and that paycheck, right? But then even knowing that, I'm like, well, I know that's not going to make me happy. That makes me feel trapped. I've done that before. Like, why do I think that that would be a better solution? And then coming back over to this work and feeling like, okay, because of the situation I was put in with this other job, like when I would do session work and come into my office, like I love doing this work. And yet now take away that other job and this work I'm starting to resent. Like, I don't understand. Am I just psychotic, right? And so I had to really sit and I kind of, like I said, I laid everything out in front of me, and it was this realization of just this deep hatred for myself and for what I am here to be and to do in relation to the environment in which I am in, right? Like, I don't want to have to put myself out there. I don't want to have to feel odd and misunderstood and all of these things. And again, these are things that come up over and over again. It's kind of this underlying tone, right, that kind of runs through our whole ascension experience. But the way that it came through to me the other night was I had been fighting and fighting and fighting, even running my own energy. And it was like I knew I just needed to put on my headphones and to turn on my vocals and to just be in my own space. And yet I had this incredible fear of even doing that. And I was like, what in the world is going on here? And finally, I just had to kind of force myself to put these headphones on and to sit and just allow what was coming through to come through. And really it was this it gave me the space to feel this. It's not just these ideas and beliefs and these thoughts, right? But I could feel it into my cells. I could feel it into the physiology. And I've said this before, of course. So much of this is all now in this biological and physiological level that we are dealing with. And I was really, really shocked, though, the degree to which I was feeling this in my muscles, in the tissues. I spent the whole night in this space, basically, within my own energy, right? But knowing that I was getting assistance from my teams. And when I woke up, though, it was this, when you have been stressed, when you've been kind of bracing yourself for something, and then the project is over, or you give the presentation, or you do the job interview, whatever, and you're past that point of stress, it was definitely that kind of relief within my body that this tension and this rigidity had been released out. But again, I think the point that I really want to make, though, is that this isn't something new, right? It's not that I was unaware of this, but to this level of recognition of how deep this really goes, right? I think that, again, I always talk about the shame and the guilt that I take on as I'm trying to heal, right? As I'm trying to walk through this path. So much of it comes from the outside of hearing these voices and feeling these expressions from people that are saying, like, just get over it. Just stop thinking about it. Well, yeah, that's the way you were. Just change how you are now. Like, make a choice and take a different path. And it's like, yeah, I want to. Like, you don't understand. Like, I'm trying. I think I am doing that. Like, I'm literally trying. And it's as if there is this physical barrier that holds me back. Because when I do attempt to do these things, there is this massive reaction within my body of anxiety and panic, right? And some of that is mental, and it is the programming, and it is the mind, but there is a level of it that is just simply biological, right? It is this stress response. It is this really this constant feed of energy that's running through the biology that also has to be released out. And I think that so often, even with my own work, it's about the words, right? It's about the way we think. It's about our attitude and our perception and our approach to how we're coming into this light work, and the way that we're bringing it into our life, and the way that we're integrating it, and all these things. And yet there is sometimes this layer of, like, you just need to give the body space, and you need to allow for this awareness and this recognition within the body. And you need to, what I really had to do was acknowledge that part of me, this whatever was being held within my DNA, within my lineage, within my biology, of this deep, deep anger of showing up as a light being. I had to give it space. I had to witness it and acknowledge it in order for it to move on. And until I was really able to do that, I've been stuck in this space. And I have to say, the shift since this occurred has been like night and day for me. But again, like I said, this comes in layers, and sometimes we're just not able to reach that layer yet. But the biggest takeaway that I have from this is that I couldn't just look at it and say, oh yeah, I have this pain because I've been tortured and whatever in my past life, right? Like, I need to move on and just step out in the world. And so many of these, like, business programs too, right? Take the leap and just do it. Like, are you putting all this effort into it, or are you not? Like, is it just excuses that you're making? And yeah, a lot of times it is true, right? It looks that way as well, because that's how it tends to play out in the physical. But underlying that is this other layer of that, yeah, it's like it's there in the energy as this physiological blockage and this barrier to really being able to step out. And so, again, I always come back to just needing to have so much compassion and so much patience on this journey. And it's hard because we all feel like we're trying to get somewhere and we don't really know where we're trying to go, right? And we know there's this sense of urgency to get on mission and to do these things. And yet it's like, at the same time, I want to, and yet I'm feeling frustrated because there's this blockage and these barriers, and I don't know. I just don't know anymore. And sometimes we get so lost and confused. And I've really had to I've been feeling like I've been put, like, in this space where it's like, not that things are weighing down on me, right? But it's like pulling away, getting to these deeper and deeper and deeper layers till I'm finally to this point where it's like, this is it now. Like this is that central point, that kind of vortex of all of it, where it's like you need to step out and you need to do this. And the immense level of fear that I felt about actually even looking at what was still keeping me from doing this. And that's another component of it too, is to not be afraid to look at these things that are triggering us, that are making us feel horrible. That's a huge part of it, really, is to be able to kind of step over that fear and to go around it. If there's anything we should be bypassing, right, it's kind of the fear when it comes up in these moments, is to say, okay, I'm not going to get trapped by this fear, and I'm going to go beyond it, because I knew, right, that I knew what I had to do. I knew I had to put these headphones on. I knew I had to go into my energy field. And yet it was creating this massive panic in me where I just felt ill, and I was just laying in bed and I was avoiding doing these things. And so sometimes it's like we think, oh my God, by this point, I should have it together better. I think that as we progress, we move into more and more kind of dense energies within the physical that we have to break through. So it's not that it gets harder. We come into contact with more challenging aspects of ourselves, but because we have so much light behind us and supporting us now because of the work that we have done, right? In a sense, it's a wash. Like it is easier. It really is not as bad as it was back in the beginning, when the fear and all the mind things kind of really clamped down and would take over. But that's not to say, right, that we still don't come up against moments where we really have to push ourselves to break through these barriers. So, again, I'm not really sure that these things are ever helpful that I say, but I do know for myself, it was a really huge awareness, and I could not believe when this finally was released out of my body, how much better I feel, how much more I feel at peace, how much more I feel really complete in all of this. So, again, it's to release out of that shame aspect too, because I think the shame is something that can keep us trapped as well. Like, I'm not doing it right. I thought my third eye was open, but I'm not seeing, but I can't, I'm not envisioning things the way that other people are, and all these kinds of things that we put on ourselves. It's like, it comes when it's ready. And yet we still have to take the steps, right? We still have to continue to push forward. So, okay. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week, and we will talk soon. Take good care.